have such sights to show you. We're Poppin the Scary Horror Podcast here. I'm your host, Coale, and with me, as always, I have my good friend and co-host, Aaron.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Whoa. What's happening, Tater Tot? I threw you through a loop for that one.
Called a tater tot.
Well, there's a first time for
I
everything.
was just trying to think of something to call you back, and I was like, Big Spud? Like, I don't know. Like,
Oh, Big Spud's pretty good. Big Spud's pretty good. Yeah. I don't have a smooth transition to talk about the movie Alligator.
Well, it's a movie about an alligator.
Well, I mean, we're assuming so anyways.
That's true. I have no fucking idea.
Yeah. And let me tell you about my experience with Alligator.
Yeah.
I have no experience.
Oh, wow.
Literally, I have no idea about it. I only know about it because of this one dude I follow on Twitter. His name's Justin Beam. He works for Scream Factory and helps like restore films. He's done a lot of good work there. He had mentioned that it was one of his favorites, and so I don't know anything about this, so I think this is probably going to be the official first start of what I'd like to call the series.
What the hell is this?
What the fuck is going on? I need to know at least this going in. Is there an alligator?
I believe there is.
Okay, I didn't know if
I
this
mean,
was
it's
like
right on the cover and everything.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah, because it was funny whenever I announced that we were watching Alligator, you kind of just had a blank expression towards the end of the
Never heard of
episode, and you're just
Alligator.
like, okay, I guess we're watching the movie Alligator, not checking out any of the other big horror hits that I'm sure we haven't gotten to yet.
I'm sure there's plenty.
Yes, and we'll probably get there eventually, but it's
What
nice
is
to
this?
take a big detour, especially after
Into the
The
swamp.
Witch was very depressing.
And intense, and yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be good. I was wondering if there was specifically an alligator, mostly because I was wondering if this was like the walrus situation, where this.
Oh yeah, Tusk,
Or
yeah,
Tusk,
yeah.
or they turns him into the
Thankfully, I don't believe it is. I believe it's pretty freaking straightforward with the plot. I haven't even seen the plot. I know nothing about this. Going in blind, all I know is Alligator. And I have the 4K copy.
Great.
Because,
If I see a single fucking crocodile, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Alligator. Yeah. You better
I know
you
the
better
difference.
get your pin pad ready on how many cinema sins they committed by showing a crocodile
I know.
instead of an alligator.
Those snouts better be wide.
Yeah, so, anyways, folks, we're gonna see you later, Alligator, as we go watch Alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
How many times are we gonna make this joke?
But seriously, there's a boat dock just downstream.
Thank you.
Just watch out for the alligators.
I will. Alligators?
That's right.
Did you say alligators?
Read my lips. Alligators.
And we are back from watching the movie Alligator. And Aaron, were you happy to see that there was indeed an alligator in Alligator?
Boy, was there. I was glad to see it. I was glad. To my expert herpetologist knowledge, I didn't see any crocodiles on screen, so truly biologically accurate the entire film was.
Man, I'm certainly glad you weren't triggered at any crocodiles there.
I would have popped a gasket.
Oh yeah, for sure. Would have sunk the film's rating entirely, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
That's like 5 points off. At
Yeah.
least.
Overall, though, the film, opening thoughts for Alligator from 1980.
Oh yeah. It was a fun time, man. That was a romp for sure. Very campy, but like in a good way. I feel like camp doesn't necessarily mean like the plot's stupid or whatever. It just means there's just some ridiculous moments in there. But for a movie about a giant alligator killing everybody, it holds together pretty well. I thought it was a funny, good time.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that there. I'm kind of coming from a place of definitely got what was advertised a little bit there. A little bit, tiny bit underwhelmed a tiny bit, I would say, and I'll get into details about it there. But I mean, overall, I mean, I feel like I got what I was expecting
Yeah.
there, and that's a good thing, obviously, because I love me some cheese. I love me some camp. Like, I know that, on the show, I tend to just care more if the movie is, like, fun over, like, critical substance there. Not to say I'm no schlub there when it comes to critical substance, but with this one, it's fun to have these kind of movies there, and I think definitely it's a film that you could gather with a bunch of friends,
Oh, yeah.
pop open a couple of brewskis there and just have it playing in the background there and be like, oh, here comes the alligator.
There he is. They do a great job of like teasing him a lot before you actually like see the full alligator too, which I think is great. Especially since it looks, what an alligator looks like. It's not like they're hiding the monster for like, what could it be reasons. But it is funny just like as the tension builds, just see a little glimmer of the alligator now and then. I think it's a funny monster, but probably not the scariest monster, but it is funny that there's this like 40-foot alligator just like popping up and eating people.
Oh yeah, no, definitely the fact that they made it a monster-sized alligator, I think, is a good choice there, as opposed to just crazed alligator or something like that. And I also feel like the plot, I mean, overall, it's pretty straightforward there from what I could tell. I mean, basically, I mean, I guess we could talk a little bit how, but basically, somebody has a pet alligator that they receive at this like alligator park there, and then the dad is upset one day, gets rid of the alligator, and it ends up going into the sewers, and it stays there, and then there's a 12-year jump.
Somebody goes missing.
And they start finding the body parts in the water filter area there, and so Detective Madison, I guess he's a detective there, works for the police force there, is on the case to figure out why body parts are appearing in the water there, and kind of uncover the mystery as to who it possibly could be. Perhaps maybe even an alligator doing this.
Perhaps. What species could it be?
Yes. I mean, I feel like plot-wise, they surprisingly explain a lot more than what I was prepared for, like how the alligator got there, and it talks about why the alligator is so big as well. I wasn't expecting it. I was just kind of expecting, yep, there's an alligator in a sewer, because I'm sure from like a lot of cartoons and pop culture, you've heard like the memes of like an alligator being in a sewer or something like that. It just happens.
Sure.
It happens, and so I felt like they didn't even need to explain it, but they took the time to do so, and I feel like overall I'm like, oh, okay, they actually just really wanted to think this plot through.
They actually do a good job of like sprinkling in alligator universe lore, you know what I mean? They like, they do a good job of like while they're doing a scene about something else, there's a little bit of dialogue, or they're establishing something else, but while they're doing that, they're talking about, oh, actually, alligators can do this, or they want to nest here, or whatever, and then that comes up later in the movie. They do a good job of kind of like sprinkling that stuff in, surprisingly.
Yeah.
And even though the plot it's pretty straightforward. If you've ever seen movies and then you watch this movie, you can see what they're setting up and what happens. It's not like it's, crazy ingenious plot, but I don't think you really want to get too experimental with the plot maybe whenever you're doing a film about a giant alligator.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of Agent Madison, Detective Madison. I'm not sure what the title is. Officer Madison.
He was detecting things.
Yes, he was definitely. He's played by Robert Forster, and overall, I feel like he does a good job just leading the plot, just being kind of the straight man, no monkey business sort of dude. He's surprisingly very blunt and straight to the point.
He's blunt, but he has like some one-liners in there. He's got some traumatic backstory that comes up. And he's got a bad hairline, which I don't know if it's just the actor or if it's them. Like, but if they wrote all that into the script, there's a lot of just bad hairline comments and dialogue, and I don't know if that was Just they cast this dude, and then they were like, let's just fucking roast him for the entire movie. Or if they had that in, and like, now we gotta find somebody with a receding hairline.
I feel like it just honestly felt like a roast more than anything, because it feels oddly specific just to write, like, I want, our lead character who's prematurely balding.
Right. And it's not even just like common male pattern baldness.
Yeah.
It's like specifically somebody whose front of their hair is going and they have a bald spot on the back, because there were comments about like both those things. I don't.
It was a point of contention multiple times throughout the film.
Almost too much.
Almost too much. But at the same point,
maybe 6 or 7 comments. It's
what adds the unique spice to Alligator.
Right.
There, but I mean, I feel like, I was fine with watching him there. Yeah. I felt like he's a very suitable protagonist to go along with there. I never felt like he was frustrating or anything. But again, I'm not watching Alligator for deep character development either. So I felt like overall, it did pretty good. And then there's Professor Kendall there, played by Robin Riker, who again, just also pretty straightforward. She's the no nonsense kind of female lead.
She knows her shit.
Yes,
I know about gators and snakes, and she's a book learning type, and kind of the opposite personality of our lead character, but they have to work closely together, and you know what happens when boys and girls work closely together in horror movies.
And I feel like she has like enough sass there to combat, so she's not just complete eye candy.
Right.
I feel like, again, she does add stuff to the plot, and again, perfectly fine character to kind of have the knowledge about gators and everything. And with Madison's know-it-how working for the Force.
His street smarts and her book smarts, so they can combat the alligator smarts.
And I will say, outside of those characters, I mean, there's definitely a lot of characters sprinkled throughout, but it's just such a blip on the radar.
Yeah, there's definitely some, like obviously the main antagonist is Big Alligator, but there's like a lot of like weird little antagonists. There's like a journalist who's like trying to just constantly roast Robert Manson because of his traumatic backstory.
Yes, most definitely.
There's like the mayor who's like a foil in some sense. There's that pet store owner that you see prominently in the beginning. There's there's just so many. There's the pharmaceutical bros.
Like him and his like father-in-law.
His future father-in-law. Yeah, they all play interesting roles in the movie, but are not like on screen for that long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even looking at the names and probably couldn't name it, but at that point it's just like like I'll already forget
the
it.
Chief.
Yeah,
I forget the Chief's name, but he's kind of important. And then there's also his partner for part of it, which is Kelly. Officer Kelly. But
see, I couldn't even have told you that. That is like even way more than what I had.
I just remembered that because he has like dream sequences in some parts of the movie, and he wakes up and he's like, Kelly.
And again, it's like it's hard because I mean, you could talk about them individually, and it's just like they're kind of feeling stereotypical roles. Like think of the stereotypes of what we described there, and pretty much it'll fit the most part there.
More or less. I did like Kelly's character though. I thought he was interesting. He's kind of like the cop who's up for anything. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, I'll come with you to the sewers.
New on the Force and everything.
I just want to see. And then Madison describes him at some point when he's in the sewers with him. He's like, I used to have a partner like you, someone who'd kick down a door just to see what's on the other side. You know?
Oh God, it's so good. I mean, and like I said, it's. It doesn't bother me there. I never felt like there were any stereotype characters that were just blatantly bad.
Yeah, there was no. I mean, there's a lot of stereotype, a lot of derivative stuff. I guess you could say negatively, but I mean, it's I didn't feel like anybody was that two-dimensional, you know what I mean? They were characters. They were just, like, they're kind of stereotypes.
I'd say the most eccentric one is, like, maybe, and I'm only knowing this because I'm looking at the list, Colonel Brock there, aka the guy who's brought in.
That guy is actually pretty funny character. I liked his character. He's such a douchebag.
Yeah.
He's like this hunter, you know, this, like, white dude who's coming in with this weird squint, and he's just, like, constantly chatting up the ladies, and I don't know, he was a real Gaston type almost, but without the muscles, you know. He was just like, yeah.
He was also picking up some of the Purge pickup tactics there of mimicking alligator noises there. Yeah.
He was like the goofball, like the guy that they try to depict as like charming, but like to such a ridiculously saccharine degree that it's like it's just gross, you know.
Yeah,
but people are just interested in him because he's so fucking weird. You know?
I would agree with that there. Yeah, I mean overall, I'd say the characters, they do their job, and I think that's the important thing there.
Yeah,
I will say, the chief was pretty dry with his line delivery.
He was chief with mustache.
Yes,
that was the character.
Mm-hmm.
I want that alligator's butt on my desk. You know,
like
guy.
He's just saying all the stuff you've heard in every film there. And you know, it's fine. It didn't bother me, but it was just one of those things I noticed where I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But of course, we have to talk about the starring character, Alligator.
Yeah.
I thought Alligator was pretty good. I definitely sorely missed his presence during a lot of the moments where they're talking about stuff, because they talk a lot in between stuff, which I understand. The Alligator moments are so big. Like, this is where, like, 3/4 of the budget clearly went to.
Oh yeah, because they had to depict the alligator in many ways. I feel like sometimes they spliced in like real alligator footage, but there was definitely some puppet and animatronic alligator in there too. Obviously for a film titled Alligator, I'd hope they focus on the alligator, but I feel like they did a pretty good job for 1980s practical effects. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's just definitely, you know, good funny moments, and the way that the alligator appears or grabs its suspects. I mean, it's just like pure horror cliche getting caught out there. And I think it's one of those things where the alligator action was slow at the beginning, but once we got towards the last third of the film, it's popping off. Multiple events are popping off everywhere, which I think is definitely good. Because again, I think I really hate the movies where they tease the monster and then they don't get the full reveal until the very end. Because usually it's just like, okay, there was all this build up and boom, here it is, and you're either going to like it or hate it, and more chances are you're probably going to hate it there. But they do a good job, and especially every time like they teased like the alligator like poking out there, like immediate laughter erupted on the couch, because you know they just have that suspenseful music playing like doo-doo, you know, and showing like the alligator eye opening, popping out of the water. I mean, it's just like, if you're going to introduce an alligator about to attack, that's the way to do it. True. There. And so I definitely, I think and we could talk about it in spoilers there, but that's probably the thing I'm going to talk about most of my favorite alligator moments, because they're just so
top 10
many.
alligator moments.
Yes, number 10.
Alligator foot lettuce.
So alligator action was definitely there. I wish there would have been a little bit more sprinkled and maybe less of the downtime, because it's surprisingly, I don't know if it was just you, to me it kind of felt like a long movie.
It did seem kind of long. It kept going. I didn't feel like the pacing was that bad. There were definitely some lulls. But I felt like it was overall, like, I was like, is this like a 2-hour movie? Like, what are we watching?
I think it was, ended up being 2 hours. In fact,
nice.
I think anyways, I'll have to confirm there. But yeah, I would definitely agree that there was only one moment where I was like, Oh my gosh, what is going on? Okay, it's not even 2 hours. It's an hour and 34 minutes. But
It feels like
it feels like a 2 hour film minimum there. But the one moment I will say that I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, just move on, was a dream he has towards the end of the film there. That was one moment that kind of pulled me out. I'm like, are we really doing this?
It was a little goofy because they kind of set up the plot line really early that he had like nightmares, but they don't really talk about it ever. And yeah, that's like one of the only times they like show him having a nightmare. And you're like, why now? Why are we watching this now?
Yeah, because like it's not even relevant
Right.
like to the events that was taking place. So that was the only moment I could think of where I'm like, really, we're doing this? And I mean, that's pretty good, because for the most part I was coasting, vibing there.
Yeah.
Just waiting for the next alligator pop. But then again, there was a lot of funny moments, whether it's from mostly Madison's line deliveries there. I mean, there's one that comes out of left field that we are like, okay. Yeah, and it was a compliment there.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, that was...
He had some funny lines, but that one even seemed a little out of character.
Yeah. That was just like the writer being like, I know what to write. He'll be so cool.
We need to let the audience know that we get horror movies. Write a line in there about tits.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, I feel like with a film like this, I don't want to say this. I tried to set my expectations low, but I think they were still a little bit high from what I was expecting, given that it got like a 4K remaster and everything. And, you know, Justin Beam was really excited about restoring it, which, let me say about the 4K, that is a really crisp looking 4K for a film from like 1980 there.
It was pretty nice.
It was pretty pristine there. So it's like zero issues with the restoration, A++ there. Especially with how dark the film is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it takes place in sewers and stuff. Yeah.
Which I will say, that's another strength about this film. I love that it takes place in the sewers. Because really, so far, the only other film I would say we have seen take place in the sewers would be It Chapter 1 there, whenever they're looking for Pennywise. And I think, you know, the sewers is such a unique setting there. Yeah. And there's definitely a lot of great moments. Granted, they don't spend the whole film in the sewers there, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think, because otherwise it would have cut down on the alligator action.
Yeah,
moments.
No, I agree. I do think it's a great sort of environment to build that tension in the beginning, because it's dark, it's spooky. There's not supposed to be anyone down there, so whenever you hear something down there, it's always going to be a little scary. You know.
Yeah,
it's cool, and it's smelly, and yeah, they set up some things early on in the sewers. You know.
Yes,
things that get left there, or things they notice and then come back later.
Yeah,
and, it's I think they do a good job with sewer stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was actually brilliant, because by the time it got towards the end of the film, I'm like, oh, it's clicking now. I know why this happened.
There was exactly one thing that they set up early that I was like, this is how the alligator dies.
It took me way longer until towards the end, whenever it's leading up to it, before it happens. I'm like, they're going to do that. So it took me way longer. It took me an hour longer, probably.
As soon as I heard it, I was like, I've seen movies.
I know a thing or two.
How the alligator dies.
Another thing I will say, that this is like a very, very, very minor nitpick, you know, there. This is like the equivalent of like, oh, that wouldn't happen in real life or whatever.
Actually.
But the alligator stunts they set up, some of them are pretty straightforward. Other ones are so situational. Like, it has to be this series of events to happen in order for it to go off.
And there's definitely, on the hand of the victims, there's definitely some really questionable behavior at times.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, oops, oh no, I ended up in the alligator's mouth. Oh, God.
Like Looney Tunes, whenever they're like trying not to get eaten and they're like walking in.
Yeah. That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, when it comes to the alligator horror genre, I think you could do definitely a lot worse than
I
Alligator.
was expecting worse, to be honest with you.
I don't blame you. See, like, we were on opposite ends. I was expecting it to be like, great but campy there.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, you had a very worried face on how Alligator was going to be, where you're like, oh
Is
no.
there gonna be an alligator?
Yes, for sure. So, I think that's totally fair.
I don't know. I'm not an expert. Those babies could have been Grouch. I don't know for sure. They had like small looking snouts, but that could just be what baby alligators look like.
Yeah, from what I can remember, I know I've been to like the zoo multiple times, and they've like had the fun like, did you know the difference between crocodiles and alligators? I know it has
caimans. They kind of looked like caimans. Right?
Yes, I think alligators have the rounded snout, whereas crocodiles have like the skinny snout, like it's a V shape. So
that's what I was looking for. There's also some teeth differences, but I'm not enough of a nerd to know that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Aside from that, bud, anything else you want to talk about in non-spoilers? It's kind of hard to talk about Alligator without spoiling a lot, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the plot is so kind of linear, I want to say. They just kind of like is start to finish, and they sprinkle in things that are always setting up for something that happens later on down the line of the plot, you know what I mean? That it's hard to kind of talk about some aspects without being like, because a lot of it actually, I don't want to say like it blew me away, but I was impressed by how tight of a structure they kept, and how clean of a movie this was in a lot of respects for being a movie about a giant alligator. But yeah, it is difficult to talk about in this section. So no, I'm fine with skipping to spoilers.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything really notable to talk about in like sound design or anything like that. I don't think we need to dive deep into any of the characters it's a movie about a giant alligator.
I think that's the best.
It eats some people, and we want to talk about when they get eaten.
I think you summarized it the best way you possibly could, to where that'd be my overall thoughts as well. But how's about we get that rating just to know exactly how we're feeling about Alligator?
All right. Well, let me tell you. I'll go right out and say it. It's like a 6 out of 10 from me.
Wow.
That's not a bad movie. It's really campy. I don't count points off for camp though. I mean, a lot of they knew they were being silly. A lot of it was just the limitations of practical effects in the year 1980. Honestly, it ages really well because I don't think it takes itself too seriously, but it takes itself seriously enough to coast along a pretty standard plot line. I think a lot of the characters are honestly great. That hunter dude is funny. I liked Kelly. A lot of these sort of supporting character roles that just kind of play the animal shop owner. They're all it worked. It worked. I do think there are a lot of really left field moments that are both positives and negatives for me, because it really added to my enjoyment, and I would think most people's enjoyment, but also was like, what the fuck, and I'm excited to talk about some of those. But overall, this plot of this movie was pretty tight. You know what I mean? Like, of course, there's some suspension of disbelief you got to do with any film involving a 40-foot alligator, but there's honestly not that much that took me out of it, where it's like, well, that wouldn't happen. It was like, I was expecting to have to kind of do that a little bit just based on the plot. And honestly, it sprinkled in enough details and stuff. It's like, here's why this is happening, here's why this didn't happen, without being fucking boring and having some person do some exposition. I thought the script was funny enough. The dialogue was decent enough. This is a 6 out of 10. I think this is a enjoyable alligator-based experience.
Wow, that's a pretty positive review overall, I would say, of Alligator, especially from where I thought you were going to come from. So
no, it's not groundbreaking, but it's a fun movie about an alligator.
Yeah. I'm not too far from you. I'm pretty much on par with your exact rating. I might be a little bit lower, but that could also be kind of like the Scream 2 effect, where I had a little bit too high of expectations, just barely there. And again, obviously, I wasn't expecting the next Shining from Alligator. Like, I knew there's going to be some cheese in camp. I just, I would definitely have cut down on some of the moments there because the downtime goes a little bit too long for me there. And with the alligator action, I felt like sometimes it would be really unique with the carnage that it brought, but in other times it felt kind of like rinse repeat for the most part there.
True.
Still fun. And, you know, I always find alligators fascinating. So seeing a whole film about an alligator causing mayhem and havoc and a lot of special effects, I would probably place it overall a 5, like maybe 5.5 there, but like right around that area there. It's a pretty okay film there. I'm worried if I watch it again, if it'll feel like slower to get to like the great moments. Cause like I said, there's a lot of good moments.
some funny
some moments that I'm like, thank you for putting in the effort, time, and money to create this scene. Because there's one scene, well, I mean, there's multiple scenes there, but there was like even one moment that I'm like, this is just perfect. This is cinema. Martin Scorsese there. But definitely worth a watch in case you're hankering for some alligator-based horror. Definitely is probably top of its line. Haven't checked any other films. I know Tobe Hooper did a film called Crocodile. So, you know, maybe in the future to be continued with more reptile action there. But let that be the base there. And for those that already love Crocodile and haven't bought the 4K version, just buy it if you have a 4K player. It's good. It's good. Crystal clear alligator action, especially with how dark the sewers is. Definitely 10 out of 10 restoration there. But let's talk about some spoilers there, because there is definitely a lot of moments I feel like we're getting ready to tear apart with our alligator teeth.
Oh yeah. You want me to start? You want me to drop the first spoiler? Your alligator mating.
I unfortunately have not studied it as hard as the Colonel did.
That guy was funny. I guess we can start somewhat chronologically. Well, let's start right at the beginning. Actually, I was tempted in the non-spoilers territory to reveal the alligator's name, but I paused. That alligator is none other than Ramon, the alligator that is flushed down the toilet from the chick in the beginning. And that chick at the beginning is none other than the doctor later on in the film.
I'm so stupid. I didn't
You
even
didn't get
catch
that?
on. No, I missed it.
No, that whenever they were doing when they're doing the standoff in the sewers or whatever, she came by and like fucking Madison was busy because he's trying to flesh out a butt, and she just kept talking to him. She was like, she's like, you know, I used to have a pet alligator when I was little. My dad said he died though or something, and fleshed him out. His name was Ramon or whatever, and. And this is him 12 years later.
Oh my gosh. I must have just zoned out there or something. I was paying attention, but like the one moment I missed that crucial information. That is so funny.
I remember because it was partway through the movie. It must have been, maybe 45 minutes in at that point. I was like,
I literally thought you were just talking about the Ramones
no,
for some reason.
No, that was his name, Ramon. And I thought it was weird. This was one of the weirder strains that they didn't really follow through with in the movie. Like, they set that part up, but then, later in his apartment, he just has, like, all these posters from some artist named Ramon Santiago everywhere. And I was like, that's obviously, like, an alligator reference that they put in the background. But they named the alligator Ramon, and they have these posters. I don't know who the fuck this artist is, though. Like, I Googled it quickly in between, ending the movie and starting this recording, but most posts for Ramon Santiago references a baseball player that was born in like 81 or something. So it wasn't, not referencing this guy, but he is an artist. I dug a little deeper. I don't know anything about Ramon Santiago, the not Dominican baseball player. But I thought it was a weird sort of thing to have plastered all over this guy's apartment. Just like a little nod, I guess, to Ramon the alligator, like this is destiny or something. But Yeah, no, that was the intro to the film, and I remember sitting through part of the way through the film thinking, are they gonna bring up that alligator that they flushed down at all? Like, is there gonna connect that or something? Or you just kind of, I almost wish they didn't, but I think it was subtle enough in a way that I was like, that works, you know? She was like, I used to have a pet alligator named Ramon. They don't make good pets, haha, tee. But
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, I believe, like, it's funny because I wasn't expecting an explanation for why the alligator is in the sewer, but we did. We got a full-fledged
I
one.
wasn't expecting an explanation for everything, but they kind of explained everything.
There's no, like, where the alligator came from? Why is it so big?
Why did it get big? They were like, well, why is it eating people? They even answered that because they were like, talking about the whatever drug that they used to experiment on. And whenever the Detective Madison was talking to the future son-in-law farmer bro, and he was like, then they're like, you ever use this? And he's like, yeah. And she was like, what does it do? And he's like, well, it rapidly increases their metabolism. And he's like, tell me that in plain English or whatever. And he like, gives them a ravenous appetite or whatever.
It's so good on, like, how they're able to explain all this, and for the most part, like, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like one of those things where it's like stupidly outlandish. The film is outlandish, but at least it makes sense in their terms there. Because I would believe, like, if this alligator was feeding on dead animals that had been injected with this growth hormone, that it would affect them somehow to become bigger and, again, as you mentioned, more ravenous there. But it's so funny getting this explanation there, and even just from the beginning at the gator park there, where it shows this guy getting wrestled there.
That was kind of wild. That's like the first 5 seconds of the movie where an alligator just starts tearing off this guy's leg, and I was like, what the fuck? Is this how that movie... Is this the alligator antagonist? But no, that was just another day at the gator park.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, of course they would sell baby gators, just very highly unethical there. And
have you ever been to a gator park, though? They have them all in, like, Louisiana and stuff.
Yeah. I have not. Have you?
When I was a kiddo, yeah. Because I had family in Louisiana. Whenever we took a trip there one time, my mom took us to some alligator parks, and it's exactly like that. But minus, I never saw somebody's leg get torn off. But they do, like, little shows where they throw them a chicken or whatever. And that part was 12 years prior. So that would have been like the 60s. I bet you're goddamn that they sold alligators to people in the 60s in Louisiana. I'd bet they were still selling slaves at that time. Louisiana, I wouldn't put it past them.
I'm sorry, Louisiana, for Aaron's comments.
Hey, I'm not sorry about Louisiana. I have enough connection there to know to be able to talk shit on them. I've got family ties. Best thing come out of Louisiana is, like, their food. You ever eaten an alligator? That's tasty. So you get some gator nuggets or whatever. You can get those in the frozen section at Walmart.
Oh my god,
that's tasty. And Cajun cooking, Cajun culture. Well, it's the only places in the United States that still has parishes instead of counties. Like, what's going on here?
Oh my god.
Anyway,
thank you for talking about the qualities of
Louisiana. If you're from Louisiana, you're probably cool. Just your state's stupid. Unless you're a politician. Fuck you. Make your state better.
Oh my god. Anyhow, moving on from that, the one thing I am curious about, and maybe again my brain was just like not all together, like whenever the dad comes home and he's angry, he's like, I'm flushing this gator down the toilet.
He just seemed like an abusive alcoholic dad who was like,
okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything vital there. Why he would just suddenly be like, I'm mad, I'm gonna flush this gator.
He seemed like drunk or something, because it was like the middle of the day and he's like, where is she? And the mom was like, she's at school. I think he was just a drunk piece of shit.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. And so whenever we get our next appearance with him, you know, because we had already been teased about body parts, be like, yeah, not sure why these body parts are showing up there, and then
which led to, sorry to interrupt, but
no,
this
no,
led
no,
to
no, no, no,
one of my
please.
favorite pieces of dialogue from the beginning, where I realized the script was going to be all right. It was whenever he's talking to the scientist dude at the fishing out the thing, and he's like, "Yeah, one time we only found a big toe. We were able to ID him though. Had a funeral and everything." And the Detective Madison's like, "Must have been a small casket."
Oh, that was a good line. It's so goofy. So goofy beyond belief. What's weird is that they surprisingly have like another subplot, which is like these dogs that are being found that are way bigger, because this elderly woman says like, "This is a sweater I knitted 2 months ago," and he's like, "You mean to tell me you could fit in that 2 months ago?" Yes.
Yeah, well, that's what first gives him to the pharmaceutical line. Yeah, because that animal dude turns out he was stealing animals off the street or whatever, that pet shop owner, and was giving them puppies for payment under the table in a slush fund, you know, so that they could experiment on these puppies with growth hormones, and then whenever they grew too big, he was tossing them in the sewer or whatever.
It's so funny because it's like this pharmaceutical company like is almost comedically evil with like how evil they are. I mean, the only thing they could do is just twirl like their thin mustache and give a villainous laugh, but they don't. They just play it straight like, I'm doing this for science.
And I love that the CEO guy is obviously just incredibly greedy, and he's also like 70 plus. He might be pushing 90. He has no business still being the CEO of anything, and he's just like, my son-in-law, keep injecting dogs so I can be rich.
Yeah, and the other crazy thing too, again, which adds more to like the villainy, I would say, is basically they also mention it's like, oh yeah, we cut their tracheas because like
their larynx.
Larynx,
so they can't bark.
Yeah, and so it's just like literally just cutting their throats in order for them to bark silently. It's just like so comedically over the top with that. It's just one of those things that I'm definitely not prepared for at all. But again, it's also funny too because you just see loads of trash bags, which I mean they're fairly tasteful for the most part, not showing the dead dogs, but they do show.
They do.
There's like 2 moments I would argue, because basically the idea is that the pet shop owner, you know, goes by the pharmaceutical place, drops off the dogs there, and then leaves, and he's going to dump the bodies in the sewer system. And so he goes to the storm drain, and I thought they were just going to throw the bags in.
That's what I thought
oh
too.
No.
He's gotta open up the garbage bags and take the dogs out and then throw them into the water, but he misses once and it just thuds on the concrete.
Does that, and it's like, oh my god.
It was pretty early on, and we were all like, "Oh my god!" Just throw it. Like they show it. They show the dog hit the concrete.
My wife watched this movie and she was pissed because she's a big animal lover, especially to dogs and cats. And so seeing that, she's like, "I hope he gets eaten."
I should have asked her how she feels about alligators.
She said overall it was pretty fun.
Okay,
pretty fun. She rated it 5 or 6 out of 10. That was her review there. So she was
kind
also
of in line,
kind of in line there. But she said she really hated that part. Yeah. And so like the funny thing is, it's like that happens, and so you think this guy's like, who cares? You know, like the water will eventually rise up, wash away. No, he's a committed at his dog disposal duty.
Yeah, he doesn't want no trace.
And so then he like climbs down there, which he's also one of the other individuals that commented on Madison's baldness going on there. And so he climbs down and he's like kicking, dragging the dog into the water, and he makes sure that dog is submerged in water. And then he's like distracted by the shopping cart blocked at this tube entranceway, which then gives a reveal to the alligator attack about to happen. And again, you don't see too much there, just from his perspective, screaming. You imagine what an alligator attack looks like, and bada bing, bada boom, you get it. You know, he's dead. And so then they surprisingly cut to like where they're finding his body parts in the water and his torn up shirt there. And so they're looking at it like, oh wow, there's like maybe a craze kill or something like that. And I believe that's whenever he heads back to the station. And I believe that's one where he decides to investigate the sewers and trying to look for any
Yeah.
volunteers. And everyone's like, nope, nope. Because, it's brought up that he lost his partner on the previous thing. And so that's why a lot of people are like, nah.
Yeah, he's like a transfer from Atlanta where
Yeah.
his partner died, and some people blame him for it.
Yeah, and so, and whenever he does get the new face rookie to join him, and they're heading out, all of a sudden, this dude comes in threatening to blow himself up along with the station.
Yeah.
That came so out of left field that I was like, is this supposed to be a joke or funny? Because everyone's like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on,
Well,
you're not gonna...
it happened like pretty soon after he went to the pharmaceutical company and was poking around, and then the son-in-law guy went to the CEO dude and was like, there's a cop sniffing around. He's like, we'll take care of him or whatever. So I thought like the pharmaceutical company sent like a terrorist bomber, and I was like, Jesus Christ, they are evil. But no, it's just some crazy guy with a radio strapped to his chest.
Yeah, and it's like a whole thing. But I love their nonchalance. They're like, okay, big guy, you're gonna blow up the station.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and so it's just very odd. And I was curious about that. I was like, was this supposed to be like just a funny joke moment? But no, it surprisingly adds up. So I think that's good on them that they...
all their weird little moments have something to do with the end. Yeah.
For the most part. Most part, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like the only weird moments that don't add up to something are just weird alligator kills.
Yes, for sure. And so whenever it gets to the next alligator kill, that's whenever they have the methane gas there. It's like, yeah, don't light a match or nothing. This stuff can blow up a whole street, let me tell ya.
Well, as soon before they even got there, whenever the chiefs handed them these 2 satchels and was like, use that in case you find any methane deposits, and I was like, oh yeah. And
Wow.
Then when they're walking through and he says like, yeah, I saw a methane explosion once and it took out a whole bus or whatever, I was like, they're gonna kill the alligator with a methane explosion. There's no way they're not gonna do that.
And I feel like overall it goes fine. I will say I am surprised at like the new rookie just being a jokester and disappearing on Madison for a time being, and you're like, did he get eaten by the alligator off screen? And then you see like the exact same perspective whenever Madison is also stuck at that cart in like that little entryway, and he's trying to move it there, and the new rookie just slaps him on the butt there. He's just like, hey, I gotcha. And then it's like, okay, let's get the heck out of here. And then lo and behold, the alligator finds him and starts chasing him down.
Yeah.
And it's comedically funny how like they're climbing up as fast as they can, and it's like, the manhole cover, it's stuck there. And so trying to kick it open there, and unfortunately there's not enough room there for the both of them. So the new face rookie gets his leg grabbed and he gets dragged, and he's like, Coale! And then it like fades to white, like that Friday the 13th whiteness. Although I will say I don't think it's quite as bright as Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, both parts 1 and 2 will blind you. Will blind you if you're not prepared. Yeah, it's been rough there, but I have Mr. Beast give you some money so you can see again.
He fixed my eyeballs.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Beast.
We gave Aaron $10 billion to see again.
But only if he can finish this obstacle course.
While blind.
I can't fucking see. We put 40-foot alligators in the water.
The Mr. Beast challenge. Alligator challenge.
You ever thought about how Mr. Beast is pretty much just Squid Games, but less death?
Yeah, he even did his own Squid Games, correct?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like, wait, it was like another Mr. Beast episode.
It was just...
This is already the shit I do. Yeah. I'm going to give you a lot of money, but only if you finish my funny little games.
I think the new Saw film should be run by Mr. Beast.
Anyway, yes. Fade to white, and then he wakes up in the hospital.
Yeah.
They were like, you just woke up and we're screaming alligator,
I love how everyone just assumes, alligator in the sewer. Come on.
Guffaw.
Yeah, like, and I know, like, it's one of those things that, like, okay, yeah, sure, I can understand it, but also maybe I'm just fantastical in my thinking. I don't think it's that far out there to assume an alligator attack could happen in sewers. I think maybe what it is like, oh yeah, you're professionally trained to handle stuff and you got killed by an alligator because of the size wise, but everyone just looks at Madison as if he's a lunatic there. Even the reporter comes by, which he already roasted him at the usual cop being interviewed by the news reporters there. He says like, your partner, he was stabbed multiple times, wasn't he? He's like, no, he was shot. He's like, oh, that's right.
That's right.
Like, he's such an
He
asshole.
just had it out for him for some reason.
And so then it's like, he has it out for him. I have no idea why. And so, and honestly, he kind of becomes important to the plot because he is so dead set on figuring out what's going on in the sewers there and I love how the nurse just tells him anything there. He's like, yeah, he just was crazy screaming about alligator. We tried to put him on meds. You mean medication? Yeah. And so then he decides to do some investigative reporting. And I know you have experience, as you've talked about before, like in The Purge there. How do you think his investigating skills as a reporter was?
Honestly, he did a lot more work than I've seen most reporters do on beats. Like, I know a handful of reporters. I don't know a single one that would just off assignment decide to investigate a sewer to see if they find any death things on their own. And then whenever he's dying, he's snapping pics the whole time. He's dedicated. I mean, I'll give him that.
It's just so random, the stuff he decides is interesting. Like, he finds a boot, and he's like, ugh.
This was yet another movie where, media is the antagonist, but I didn't mind the depiction of it in this movie because, he's actually helpful because he takes pictures of the alligator as it's killing him, and it leads them to take that seriously. But
yeah, that was the funny thing. But again, like, especially how he's caught out. He is there's this shopping cart fascination in the sewers there where it not only stopped the pet shop owner, it stopped Madison as well, and now it's stopping this reporter here who's taking multiple pictures, moving this license plate delicately to different angles.
Gotta set up this shot.
And then of course he's like eating there and taking shots there, and I just remembered Madison has another great line whenever they announce he died and stuff. He's like, well, he got what he was wanted, being on the front of the newspaper.
Yeah, he got what he wanted. Front page story or whatever.
That's what it was. He's just full of quips there. And that's what proves it, which is funny because let's be honest, love interest, Professor Kendall, she's dismissing the idea like, there's no way an alligator could get that big. It's just not possible. I don't see how this could happen. And she even gives like this book about alligators and reptiles to Madison, who reads it, and everybody thinks he's absolutely crazy there. But it's by this point, it's like, I'm sorry, we were wrong. We should have known. Yeah, that's a big alligator.
Large gator.
And I love whenever, Madison's flipping through the TV looking at stuff and everyone's talking about the alligator attack, and the mayor's like, we will spare no expense on taking care of this alligator problem. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, whatever. No, they sent SWAT. They sent SWAT to take care of this alligator. And I'm like, holy hell, the connections he has.
4 teams in the sewers, and then there was like another 20 people outside. They showed them carrying bazookas.
It's like, holy cow. Like, even if it's a big gator, I wouldn't not think like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to bring RPGs. But no, they're like all set and everything. And it's surprising because, they have this whole big setup, this whole lead up, everything. You think something's going to happen and nothing happens. They're like, we don't see nothing there. And so then Madison's like, that doesn't make sense. He has to be here somewhere. And then, it's like Madison and the chief going through this baseball game taking place on the street. I was not prepared for alligator attack there.
Yeah.
Because I thought maybe because I knew they were by a storm drain, like maybe like it somehow is able to like wedge its snout through there and grab one of the legs and pull it through. Oh no. He bust through the concrete, which is one of the most glorious shots. I love how practical effects wise, they just brought a gator and onto a set that was shrunk down to make him look even bigger, and just this whole
breaking through. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, and one of the cops who's driving along, who's like trying to avoid getting hit, runs into a parked car and just topples and explodes.
That was hilarious. There's like a kid in the road who's running from the alligator, and he's responding, so he's driving fast. He's just, oh shit, and like swerves, hits a car, and explodes.
There is so much car carnage that I
Yeah.
was not prepared for.
There was quite a few times where I feel like they just had leftover prop cars and explosives or whatever, and they were like, well, can't let these go to waste. Like,
That is
Blow
so
it up.
accurate. Yeah, just like, oh yeah, and it's funny too because like, the cop that's in the car is like trying to get out, so then he just like pathetically flops out the window as the alligator is just
coming.
moving forward there. And of course gets his like leg nibbled on, which again surprisingly also does lead to them finding out more stuff about the alligator. There's a lot of moments that, again, I think script wise they just were like, how do we make this match up with one another? They actually put thought into it. So I think that's definitely impressive there. But I do love the scene of like the boy who's running upstairs trying to get call for help or whatever, and the mom's talking on the phone, and he just runs outside with a kitchen knife,
Yeah, he's
like
like,
getting
"Gotta get
ready.
it."
And then again you see the alligator like drop into a pond, and so that's whenever like there's just two police boats going around dropping grenades there and blowing them out. And they're like, "What are they doing?" It's like, "We're gonna blow them out."
Yeah.
And then that's whenever the colonel comes up and says like, "It's an alligator, not a submarine." Something like that. And this dude is so douchey, full of himself, and full of
that
just
guy.
ridiculous
The
lies.
hunter dude, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Every single woman he comes across, he's like, "You're beautiful."
yeah, and I can't remember. I mean, obviously, I think you picked up a lot more than I did. What did he tell Professor Kendall whenever she was like coming up? He's like, "You stick with your books," or something like
yeah,
that.
he dismissed her pretty quick. He very first thing he said to her was, he's like, "What's this beautiful lady doing here?" Or whatever. And she's like, "This is Dr. Kendall. She's the leading herpetologist on alligators or whatever." And he's like, "I know gators. Like, you stick to your books about them. I'll start killing them or whatever." Like,
Yeah, just very much dismissive. Like he's somehow just going to take over, and again flirting with every woman. I also love all of the people taking advantage of this alligator attack there.
They're all selling alligator props and stuff.
Yeah, like there's so many people throughout there. It's just comedic at this point. I'm trying to remember. I think it's like shortly after this where oh boy howdy, that Madison is kicked off the force, I think.
Yeah,
right?
so he's kicked off the force after he goes back to the pharma company, and they have that conversation about like the metabolism and like, oh yeah, I guess some dogs grew pretty quick or whatever. Because he's poking around there again. Pharma bro tells CEO dude is in a meeting with the mayor, and it turns out the mayor's on the payroll of Big Pharma, and he's like, I want him off it or whatever. And then next time Detective Madison is in the office, the chief is like, "You're off the force, you poked too far," or whatever.
Yeah,
He's like, "It's out of my hands," so it was obvious the mayor instructed to the chief that he can't be on the force.
And it's surprisingly pretty smart of them how they led up to like connecting it to Big Pharma again, because Dr. Kendall is like looking and she's like, "Oh hey, this saliva sample that we got from the gator because they were able to retrieve the cop's like leg there, the residue is showing like all these growth hormones and everything about it." So then they connect there, and so that's what kicks him off. But again, he's a committed dude. He's going to continue on with the force. I will say that the love between him and Kendall was about horror movie average love fast.
Yeah, it wasn't awful. It was believable. The worst part of it was really just how his the detective Madison's attitude towards women shifted in this relationship.
Yeah.
He said some weird things. It was
He did.
he was kind of, he was a straight shooter and he's gonna tell it like it is, but he wasn't necessarily like an asshole. And then he was just kind of like, yeah, he said some things that the comment about like, even when he apologized to her and he's like trying to get her to come help him later, he's like, "You've got a great brain, a brilliant mind or something, and amazing tits. You gotta join us." And I was like, what the fuck?
That just came out of left field, and everyone, like all of us, were just like, "What?" Just like all of a sudden, and she's just like, "Ooh, you know."
Well, you said all the right things.
Yeah, you said all the right things. You know, men are looking for dates. Write this stuff down. Please do not write this stuff down. Do not follow this mindset.
Oh man, I was actually, up until they kind of got together, was like, wow, I'm impressed that this movie has like no just women with their tits out for horror movie views, you know what I mean? Up until that point, I was like, wow, there's just a lot of male nudity. Like the detective's taking off his shirt all the time.
Oh,
for some
yeah.
reason. Just never stops taking off his shirt, and then like there's like even some male butt action in the locker rooms, and I was like, okay, hey, nice. And then there's a sex scene and you see some boobie, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess it's a horror movie. I should expect to see boobies at some point. But
Yeah. I will say one of the kills that I'm definitely amazed by is the swimming pool kill.
I knew we were going to talk about this at some
Oh,
point.
yeah, for sure.
Because up until this point, everybody that died was like, pretty much, it was either like a cop, someone involved in it directly, or was like a bad guy. You know what I mean? It was like an antagonist of some kind. And then...
Oh, yeah. And they're having like this, like, it looks like a costume party, something like that. And so then these two little kids are dressed up as pirates. They're like, yeah, you're gonna rock the plane. Taking like this kid that's dressed up as a cowboy who has a bandana over his eyes there, just to make it scarier. And they're like going up to the swimming pool diving board there, and the mom's looking outside and she doesn't see the kids, so she turns the lights on, and so it's at that moment the lights show that the alligator's there, which I will say they do give a little bit of a hint that he's probably somewhere that's a pool, because you see like one cut where there's like a lifesaver there. You see he's in a pool of water somewhere.
They're like searching the city with a helicopter over a bunch of pools, and it just shows him like lurking beneath some stuff in one.
But anyways, and so they're about to push him off, and like the blindfold like kind of comes off the cowboy kid, starts screaming, and you think he's going to make it, because he starts to swerve like back onto the diving board, but nope, he plops in and the kids try to go save him. Blood everywhere.
I was like, holy shit, this kid's probably like 6. It was like, oh my god.
Yeah, definitely didn't think the film had the cojones to kill the child.
I was like, if they're gonna kill children, it's probably the bullies somehow, but no, the bullies just bullied the kid to death by feeding him to an alligator.
Yeah, and it was pretty quick. They were just very much like, they don't really show the kid being attacked, everything. It's just him plopping in, then whenever he cut, it's like just a pool of blood in the pool, basically. And then it just continues marching right along as they're trying to
address it at all.
No, they just are me like, and the kid's dead, moving on, which I mean,
and these kids weren't even like part of the story. It was just like, here's another kill, next.
Yeah, moving on. And then for the most part, I feel like the alligator action is died down a little bit until the wedding.
Yeah,
that wedding,
the red wedding.
Well, yeah, what if the red wedding had an alligator in the mix? A 40-foot alligator.
1 hour video essay. What if an alligator?
Oh my god, what if alligator? And this wedding scene, it's like, I made a joke with Aaron, because it's the typical rich white people wedding they have.
Very rich white people wedding.
It's like everything is like white, the chairs, the table. They're playing like classical music there.
It's all outdoors. It's a lovely day. Everybody's dressed in white. And
and they're like laughing, scoffing, doing like the rich people laugh. They do a lot. And so, you're like, okay, something's gonna happen at this wedding. They wouldn't set it up unless something was gonna happen. And sure enough, the alligator somehow arrives, and beautiful carnage, because it started with this elderly woman who's laughing, who actually does a pretty solid scream.
Yeah.
There definitely cast due to a scream, and then maids and butlers are getting chewed up.
Yeah,
And one thing I will say, the tail whip force of this gator is insane. Just a
giant muscular tail. Muscular
Yes.
tail.
Because yeah, it was pretty crazy there. And one of the best parts, like, that was done so perfectly, is whenever the gator, like, hits somebody into the wedding cake. This dude is flying backwards, upside down into the cake perfectly. Like, it was like frame perfect.
I was thinking about how they did that, and I was like, it must be a stunt guy that just like was like, you got a springboard around here somewhere, like you got a trampoline at an angle. I got a great shot for you.
Yeah, it was a great shot.
He must
like
have jumped, like hit the trampoline and did a backflip into it upside down, and just like
yeah,
it was
it's
crazy.
it's insane, because that was like picture perfect. That was like a moment like, this is cinema. It was absolutely perfect. And so that whole gator carnage kind of made up for how the Colonel went out, because I will say it was kind of fairly samey repetitive stuff. But again, I know whenever you have a killer alligator, your options are even more limited, because what's a gator gonna do? Bite, swipe.
Yeah.
That's it. That's basically your two.
I was a little disappointed, that they didn't get more creative with it, because like there could have been some more death rolls in there. You know what I mean? There could have been maybe the gator just pops out of the ground, great white shark style, and eats somebody. Maybe
that would have been so good.
There's so many things you could do with it, but yeah, it was mostly just he bite and bore you to death.
Yeah, and it was funny too, because the Colonel was just being a douchewad basically, and he's enlisting these guys off the street to help him out.
Yeah, he hires some 3 local youths and has them be like his, I don't know, his like hunting caddies, like carry his rifle
very
and stuff.
A nondescript job. It's like, how would you guys like to get paid $10 a day?
Right.
And they're like, sold.
Well, yeah, boy, would we.
Yeah.
They're like people that knew the neighborhood, I guess, because they spotted out where the gator might be, and he was like, yeah, someone said there's heavy breathing down this alley. And he's like, where's it lead? And he's like, oh, the railroad tracks. Okay. He walks down there, but they're all scared to go with him, except for one of the kids. And yeah, that was such a. It was. I guess alligators are an ambush predator. It was hiding in the garbage, waiting for him.
I know. It just popped out. It just blended in perfectly, and he's just slowly being swallowed. I was surprised the one dude didn't immediately run away. That he tries to go for the gun and he's firing, and it's like there's no ammo there. Right. So then he's like, okay, forget this. I'm out.
Yeah, he's just
there. Totally understandable. Makes sense there. But yeah, definitely surprised to see a hunter get that bamboozled.
Yeah, he was the hunted all along.
But like I said, afterwards, whenever that wedding stuff is happening, it also is hysterical that the CEO of the pharma company there runs to the limousine and locks the mayor out, and mayor's like, let me in. And he's like, nope. Even though there could have been plenty of time for them to get in the car and drive away. Because that's the other thing. The limo driver dropped the ball, not immediately peeling out of there, because they had to watch the alligator tear up the mayor. And then...
just in shock.
It's so funny, because as soon as he's like, okay, let's go, bam, the motor is just totaled with an alligator slam.
Yeah.
There, just the tail is crushing the car. It compacts the car to where it crushes the CEO inside. And it's just like, well, kudos to them for coming up with another kill besides bite, tear, eat.
True.
It's just bad. And they are just merciless on that car. And then... basically at this point, Madison and Dr. Kendall are just freelance police running around trying to take care of this alligator there. And then they follow the alligator who enters this pond. And again, you have like these guys in the police boats chasing him down. And the fact that was another surprising alligator tactic. True. Slightly raising up to be a ramp for the boat to where people would lose control and flip out of the car and drop a live grenade on top of a pile of grenades that just explodes up
the whole boat.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and definitely a lot of carnage there. Even takes out this one dude's legs, which you see like whenever they drag him out of the water, he just has stumps for legs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, where'd he go? He's like, he went back to the sewer. And so fortunately, they didn't really talk about how they were going to kill the alligator. However, on the last day of Madison working at the force, he grabs that radio clock and a whole bunch of dynamite from the evidence and it takes it with him. And so I guess clearly he had a plan the entire time, even though they don't talk about it. And so you know, they pull up there and his whole idea is like, okay, I'm gonna find this thing, lure him to like that methane plumed area there, basically set up the bomb and try to crawl out of the manhole that's right next to there and blow this sucker sky high there. And here's one thing I will say. This is a stupid pet peeve. I know it shouldn't bother me in films. I do this, but I hate whenever the timer is inconsistent with real time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, whenever like 12 minutes of action has happened and there's only been 3 minutes in movie time there. I mean, it doesn't bother me too much, but it is one of those like comedic things. This timer is pretty accurate.
True. He sets it for about 2 minutes, and it's about a 2-minute scene. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that was really smart and respectable. And I do like how he is foiled, because like his plan pretty much goes off without a hitch there, you know. The gators followed him up to the methane area. He sets up the bomb. He's climbing up there, and he tries to get out. And it is funny because even before he tries climbing the ladder, the gator gets a couple good hits on him there. Definitely puts him down to cut down the time. But as soon as he's trying to get out of the manhole cover, a car perfectly parks over the manhole cover with its tire to where he's like, let me out. And fortunately, Dr. Kendall knew exactly where the manhole cover would be. And it's so funny because the car stops because it's right behind a garbage truck, like unloading garbage there.
Garbage day.
You know that reference too.
Oh, yeah.
Such a goofy movie. Yeah, and so then Dr. Kendall's like, I need you to move out of my way. And she's like, what are you talking about? There's no one underneath the car. Let me sit here while I wait for the garbage truck to move. And the garbage like, yeah, I'm almost done.
Yeah.
Don't freak out.
Stop rushing me, crazy
So
lady.
I guess it must be a daily occurrence where people are running up to others, being like, hurry, get out of the way. And you know, he makes it out. He cuts it pretty close, mind you.
Yeah.
It is literally down
It's like
to the
5
last
seconds.
second there. By the time he makes it out of the manhole cover, and I'm surprised they showed the alligator explosion, you know, like guts flying and everything. Which, fun fact, did you know those guts were personally loaded in by Bryan Cranston?
Really?
Yes, he worked on the set. Apparently, he was working as like production assistant or something like that, where he would just like work through like files and everything there. And they said, hey, we're looking for like someone to help out with special effects. You want to help? He's like, God, anything to get me out of this, because it sucks. Because he was wanting to do something besides being an extra. And so he's the one that loaded the alligator guts into the alligator that blew up.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I think he talks about it in his biography, autobiography. He has his memoir there. It's actually pretty interesting. I definitely recommend it. But yeah, so those were personally Walter White loaded alligator guts that were spilling out.
That's a man that knows things about explosions.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely for sure. Oh my gosh. But yeah, and you know, it ends pretty cheesily there. Another thing that I forgot to mention before we get to final things is Dr. Kendall's mom is so quirky. She's like, everyone's giving like a stereotypical performance. She's the one that just does lots of weird stuff, is super exotic and everything.
She's like, she's the kind of person that starts talking and never stops talking.
Yeah, and so it was like, which eye is evil? Is it this one? Oh, this one.
Yeah.
You know, like crazy stuff like that. Only bring it up because it's like towards the end of the film there where the chief like makes a quip at Madison, and then Madison makes another quip or whatever about like hooking up the chief up with Dr. Kendall's mom there. And have one last jab of the baldness there, being like, "Oh, you think you go for a chief?" It's like, yeah, I think so. I think she would be into like the male baldness there. I think it runs in the family.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, very funny. And they have such a cheesy way. Well, they have two cheesy ways of ending it, and they both hit the points there. But like they cut to black whenever it shows like an above headshot of like the camera being in the manhole cover there, and so then like one of the guys closes the manhole cover as like Dr. Kendall and Madison are like holding each other as they close, cuts to black, and then lo and behold it goes to like the little water tube where you saw the alligator Ramon drop in, and what do you know, another alligator freeze frame. Little baby gator, and it just
setting up for the squeakle.
Yeah, and I do believe they did make sequels to Alligator. I'm not sure how many.
2.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many. I had to check out this. I have to confirm. Yeah. Just another one. It looks like it was just one. Alligator 2: The Mutation. Came out 11 years later.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I feel like that's pretty much Alligator down to a T.
Yeah.
I think, what was your personal favorite alligator kill?
Man, that's a good question. A lot of my favorite gator moments weren't even the kills. It's like the little teases they had, you know what I mean? Where they show the alligator in the background. I think whenever they were both in the sewers for the first time, Madison and Kelly, and they pass by it for the first time, and it's like in the shadows. It's like dun dun, and it does this little animatronic head turn.
I forgot, like whenever they have like the flashlight pointing to the background there, and it shows the alligator, and cut back. Oh, that was such a good moment.
That might be one of my favorite alligator kills. All the mayhem that happens whenever he busts through the concrete at the first time.
Oh yes, the sidewalk there. That was pretty
one of my
good.
Favorite alligator moments. But yeah, specific kill, man, if I had to just based on the kill, probably one where he kills a kid is the funniest, because I did not expect that to happen.
Oh my gosh, yeah. For me, my favorite, I mean, I don't even know if this dude died or anything, but it's got to be the tail whip into the cake.
That is pretty great.
That's pretty good, but if I did have to go for a kill, I mean, it probably does have to be the kid because it's so jarring.
So shocking.
I think I'd definitely be more like disturbed by it if they showed the kid being torn apart. But fortunately, Alligator has enough taste,
enough class. Yeah.
Yes, enough class to not show a kid being torn apart.
Not enough class to not kill a kid, but enough class to not show it that
They're
much.
above, really rubbing salt in the wound. They want it to be a very sombering experience, seeing a child get eaten by
a child dressed as a cowboy.
Yes, getting eaten by an alligator.
I will say, it took impressive restraint for this movie not to make any "see you later" alligator jokes. I was looking for it. I really thought Madison was going to drop the bomb or whatever. The timer was going to tick to 0, and he's going to just say, "See you later." And then...
Oh my gosh.
I would have put money that would have happened, but it didn't happen. So
no,
proud
surprise.
Of them.
That must have been so hard for them. That must have been so hard.
I bet there's a director's cut out there somewhere where that happens.
Oh my gosh.
He looks over his shoulder. See you later.
Maybe in the sequel.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh man. Anything else you want to talk about with Alligator?
No, we've covered it.
I think we've exhausted the talk about Alligator there. Definitely a good flick if you're looking for some alligator action. I would have personally preferred more alligator action, but I am okay with the amount of action I got, though.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, how about we talk about the next teaser then for the next film? So
how about we?
So yes, so this next film is going to be. I haven't seen it. That is one hint I will give. It's going to be a lot more sombering experience. We had our fun with gators and stuff, but now we gotta
nice palate cleanser.
Do something. And this one's going to be a little bit. Well, who am I kidding? It's definitely going to be one of the more iconic films. It comes from the year 1968 there, and it has to deal with a woman who is bearing a child where she's questioning who the father is.
Huh.
And needless to say, it is a very disturbing film with dark, somber tones. And if I'm to give 2 hints, like, like sounds like, charades sort of words
Okay.
there, think of a spice, and then think about an infant.
Now, Rosemary's Baby?
Yes, it's
Okay.
Rosemary's Baby. Yes, definitely that one of the more films you've probably heard people talk
I have
about
heard
there.
it discussed.
So I feel like after watching something a little less known, we should just continue on with hammering down the classics.
Classics.
Yes, so thank you all so much for listening to this episode. We'll see y'all again next time when we're popping the scary with Rosemary's Baby.
Catch you later.
That is such a weird thing to say. I don't know how to feel about it. But it's at least it's scary.
It's a scary baby.
Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is @ColkirkVA, and for Aaron, it is @AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're popping the scary.